friendship that'll never ever end.
Run!
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 714. Tighten that neighborhood. My brothers and sisters. It is the start of the weekend once again, my friends. And today, we are going back to Jose Ortiz from Evil Intentions. Back to Evil Intentions, Bean Team. And the title of the video is Childhood Friend Savagely Slain. 6 bodies tied to one monster. The story of Lisa Ann Rodriguez. Now, just from reading the title, y'all, the first thing that came to my mind is, did this monster kill these 6 people at the same time, or did it happen over time? You know what I'm saying? Like, either way it go, long story short, story long, it's the F up. But that's just the first question that came to my head. But I don't know. But we're about to see. But before we see, Bean Team, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need, please. We are back to Jose Ortiz from Evil Intentions. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's go.
I'd like to start today's video by giving a big thank you to the family and friends of Lisa Ann Rodriguez, who had kind words to share when I covered this story for the first time a few years ago on TikTok. I covered another story that ties directly into this one, the story of Jessica Guzman, but I always promised to go deeper into the details and show how this tragedy affected numerous families. I have to warn that today's video contains a lot of details that are going to be extremely disturbing to listen to, and they involve the lives of women and children from all over the Bronx, so please do keep that in mind. In order to tell today's story properly, and to give you guys a better idea of the era that Lisa and many others were raised in, I have to take you guys back to the 70s and 80s.
That is a live picture, a major fire in the South Bronx region of New York City.
The 70s and the 80s were not easy times to be raised in the Bronx. Much of the borough was falling apart, literally up in flames, and it seemed that with time, things only got much worse. In the mid-80s, along with everything else going on, residents were dealt yet another harsh blow when one sick individual began to stalk their streets, claiming several young lives in brutal fashion. The oldest of those victims was a 21-year-old woman, and she had no idea that she would soon suffer the same horrific fate as her childhood friend. While authorities and members of the community were searching all over the Bronx to try and find out who it was that was committing these vile acts, they would be shocked to learn that they didn't have to look very far. The monster was living among them the entire time. On today's episode of Evil Intentions, this is Common Denominator, the story of Lisa Ann Rodriguez.
get whatever you may need. And the first thing, y'all, is that Jose has already answered the question that I had going into the video. Is whether or not this happened over a period of time or did this happen all at the same time. No, this was literally a freaking serial killer walking the streets of the Bronx, man. And it seemed like he really didn't pick and choose who his victim was, because one of the ladies, it was a 21-year-old, but then it was a 10-year-old too. Just a freaking tragedy, man. Just a tragedy. And another thing, man, just Jose showing the 70s and the 80s, y'all. Like, times just look so different back then. Like, seriously, man, like that's an era way before cell phones existed. You know what I'm saying? To the public, at least. And it's just looking back on it, man, and I know this may sound crazy, but I know you're gonna get what I'm saying, Bean Team. Like, just watching old footage like that, it almost looked like the air smell different. You know what I'm saying? And I'm not saying in a bad way, but it almost looked like even the freaking air to me seemed like it had a different smell than it do now, if you get what I'm saying. I digress. Let's get into the video, y'all.
The Bronx was burning. Urban decay went as far as the human eye could see. Gangs ran through the streets, some engaging in local wars, while others tried to protect their communities from outsiders. The crime and poverty in the Bronx would soon be learned about across the nation, shining a light on the struggles endured by thousands of families in the borough. It can be known as an extremely rough place to grow up, but at the same time, a place of success, intelligence, legends, and last but not least, family. The era that I just described was the one that Lisa was raised in. She was an only child, born to two very loving parents. Like other families at the time, they faced hardships and challenges over the years. Despite tough times, the family always remained tight-knit. They were known as a kind family in the neighborhood. Over the years, they had become familiar with the other families that resided there. While there were some very unpredictable times, there was also a strong sense of community and families just doing their best to make it by. Lisa, like many others, adjusted to her environment just fine, and she was growing up to be an intelligent and vibrant child. After all, not every single part of the Bronx was up in flames, but certain events unfolding in the borough over the decades would affect everybody on some level. Even at a young age, she was always well-mannered and very polite, and it's something that she would carry with her into her high school years, when she would continue to make friends and really come into her own. Lisa attended Monsignor Scanlon High School, a Catholic school located at 915 Hutchinson River Parkway. She was described by other classmates as smart, kind to others, and popular among students. It was said that when she spoke to people, she had a way of making them feel special, like they had her undivided attention. She was also described as very beautiful, known for her big smile and stylish appearance. When it came to school, Scanlon was as strict as you might expect, but it was also described as a school where teachers and students had excellent relationships. Lisa excelled and always kept her focus, at the same time maintaining friendships with some of the other kids in class. If she wasn't at school, she was spending time with her cousins or her friends. Sometimes, for fun, she would attend a well-known spot on Boston Road, the Stardust Ballroom. They had nights aimed at teenagers with no alcohol served, while other nights they had everything from salsa night to classic hip-hop acts. When she was 16 years old, Lisa would become reacquainted with someone from her past, her childhood friend, Annette Rosario. They had known each other since they were kids, but lost touch over the years. They attended different schools, with Annette attending Lehman High School. The two reconnected at a Sweet 16 held at the Stardust, and from that moment on, it was as if no time had passed at all. They quickly became close. Much like Lisa, Annette was described as a kind person, a young girl with dreams of someday becoming a cop, the type of kid to make it home from school and immediately call her mother at work to let her know that she made it home safely. Annette's mother had the following to say about their friendship. "My daughter and Lisa each went to each other's Sweet 16. They were always together." What the two teens weren't yet aware of was that their newly rekindled friendship would be short-lived.
And now I'm still wondering, y'all, real quick, man. Now I'm wondering, did this freaking killer know that they was best friends? You know what I'm saying? Does that have anything to do with it? Or is this just was random act? Or were they? No, I don't think Jose said they was murdered together. I don't know, man. I'm just trying to see how in the freak does this all tie in with them being friends. You know what I'm saying? It's kind of weird that a freaking murderer randomly murder two people and come to find out both of them damn their sisters. That's crazy. I don't know. Let's find out.
On June 21st of 1986, Annette had her 17th birthday party at the Stardust Ballroom and phoned her mother at around 2:30 a.m. to let her know that she was on her way home. She wasn't normally out that late. 1 hour went by, and then another. After 2 hours, Annette's mother grew worried. It was about 4:30 a.m. when she went to the Stardust Ballroom and asked bouncers if they had seen her daughter. But they had no information, and neither did her friend who walked her outside. The distance from the Stardust Ballroom to Honeywell Ave, where Annette lived, is only about a 15-minute cab ride. She never stood out late like this, and she definitely wouldn't let her mother get worried. This was all highly unusual for her. It would soon become very clear that Annette was missing. It would be weeks later, on July 8th of 1986, when the badly decomposed body of a young teen was found near Shore Road in the Bronx. Her body was in bad condition, but through dental records, the body was confirmed to be that of Annette Rosario. She had sustained blunt force injuries to the head, resulting in a broken skull. The sudden death hit everyone extremely hard. For Lisa, it was a huge blow. They were about the same age, and nobody could even begin to imagine who would want to do anything to harm Annette. It left this unsettling feeling that anybody could be next. Residents of the Bronx, Lisa included, would try their best to move forward and be safe, doing what they could to tuck that tragedy into the back of their minds. Years after Annette's slaying, now 21 years old, Lisa was now attending Lehman College and just focused on her future. Even after 4 years, authorities still had no idea who did this to her friend, and in the years since Annette, there had been other victims, bodies that were all found under eerily similar circumstances. The people of the Bronx would begin to put the pieces together. A monster was on the loose, maybe multiple, but something about all the crime scenes felt very familiar. Each time this happened, it hit a little closer to home, but nobody could ever imagine that Lisa would be the next person to suffer this awful fate. On June 14th of 1990, Lisa started her day how she normally would. She got ready, told her mother she was headed to a friend's house, said bye to her family, and went about her day. Toward the evening, it was stated that Lisa was seen leaving the Whitestone Multiplex Theater on Bruckner Boulevard, and she was alone. She was then seen by Morrison and Story Avenue at around 8 p.m., but after this, Lisa was nowhere to be found. It was almost as if she just vanished. This was highly unusual for her. Her parents were instantly worried. She was reported missing, but authorities had very little to go on. This was all very surreal for her parents. They couldn't believe they were really reporting their daughter missing. All they wanted was for her to come back home, but there seemed to be no trace of her. That's until 5 days later, on June 19th of 1990. That day, police were alerted to a badly decomposed body found near the Hutchinson River Parkway. The elements had already started to take their toll on the body. To everyone's absolute shock, it was Lisa. After nearly a week missing, it was clear that she too had fallen into the hands of a monster. She was
I'm sorry, y'all. This got to be this killer. If it's the same killer, which I'm thinking it is, that killed Annette, that now have killed Lisa, he had to know there was friends or something. Like, it's hard for me to believe that he just randomly picking, and it seemed like women, but it's just random picking people to kill, and they just so happy to be friends, y'all. I'm stuck on that part. Even though what still makes it weird is the fact that he killed Lisa 4 years after he killed Annette, I can't remember her name. Rest in peace to her though. But it's just like, come on, man. There gotta be some tie-in with that, y'all. I hope we get some answers before this video over with, man. And I hope this man get life in prison. Let's keep going.
Found near the Parkway that also happened to be close to the theater that she had been seen leaving the night she disappeared. Her body was so badly decomposed that most of her neck was missing, and her corpse was infested with maggots. She was found wearing a pair of pink sweatpants that authorities would later learn didn't even belong to her. An autopsy wasn't able to determine a cause of death at first, but her slaying would later be ruled as homicidal asphyxia, which meant this could have been done a number of ways, and the person responsible was still out there. News of Lisa's sudden death left everyone with broken hearts and fearful of who could be next. While they weren't sure exactly how her life was taken, it was clear that this vile act was driven by pure hatred or anger. Word quickly made its way around to Lisa's neighborhood and to her friends. It made other young women feel like if it happened to her, it could happen to anyone. When someone sadistic is stalking the streets, preying on their next victim, they don't need much of a reason, only opportunity. The loss was incredibly difficult for Lisa's parents. Their only child, they raised her to be a kind and loving young woman. They thought they had all the time in the world left with her. Instead, on Tuesday, July 3rd of 1990, they were laying her to rest. The day of Lisa's service, many attended to pay respects and show her family support. It was still so unbelievable, the fact that they were here, celebrating her life, mourning her loss, when they hadn't yet accepted the fact that she was really gone. A funeral procession followed the service, with police officers following behind, as the vehicles took one final trip through the streets of the Bronx. Her family and those who attended the service made it clear that this loss was immense, and they tried their best to put one foot forward to move on from the tragedy. But nothing could ever help them forget, and without anyone in custody for Lisa's slaying, there was no road to closure. After laying Lisa to rest, her mother went to group therapy to work her way through the grief. In that group was Annette Rosario's mother, who had been attending since she lost her daughter. Two families connected through their grief. Over the next few months, there wasn't much information to go on. No idea who had been taking these lives, but there were so many similarities between Lisa's slaying and four others dating back to 1986, starting with her own childhood friend. Annette Rosario was first, found in July of 1986 and last seen in June. Then there was 14-year-old Shamira Bello. She was last seen around noon on July 2nd of 1988. Her body was found the next day, July 3rd, near City Island. She had been found nude below the waist, violated, and sustained repeated blows to the head that cracked her skull. The next victims were friends 13-year-old Nilda Cartagena and 15-year-old Heriberto Marrero, also known by loved ones as Eddie. On June 9th of 1989, they were on their way to school at around 8:30 in the morning. They were last seen entering a car belonging to Nilda's uncle near Morrison Avenue. Their bodies were found not far from one another off the Hutchison River Parkway near the Whitestone Bridge on June 20th of 1989. They were stuffed into plastic bags. Lisa was the fifth victim in 1990. For anyone looking, there was a clear pattern. The victims were last seen and discovered between June and July, and they were found in similar areas. Whoever was doing this seemed to have a certain time of year they carried out their crimes, and they seemed to have a preference on where they left the bodies. Authorities
and also, whoever was doing this, they seemed like they just evil as freak. Long story short, story long. The thing I'm talking about, y'all, is just the fact that the way that he did them. You know what I'm saying? This person, and I'm pretty sure it's a male. I'm pretty sure it's a man who was doing this. Just the way he mutilated and beat their bodies, and you know what I'm saying, man, to the point where Lisa was unrecognizable. You had to use dental records just to understand who the freak she was. You couldn't even just look at her face and tell. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, this dude was like the top of the line evil type of ish. Let's keep going.
He's found themselves stumped without any solid idea of who was doing this. But that would all change on October 10th of 1990. It was then that 10-year-old Jessica Guzman would go missing. She was last seen not far from her building in the Castle Hill houses. Her badly decomposed body was later discovered in a wooded area near the Bronx River Parkway on October 17th of 1990, 3 days shy of her 11th birthday. Hundreds would take to the streets to protest, demanding answers and that the sicko responsible be brought to justice. This wasn't just about Jessica. It was about Annette. It was about Shamira. It was about Nilda and Heriberto. It was about Lisa. All victims with no answers. The families involved never forgot about the other families who were experiencing the same horror as them. They all supported one another as best as they could, while grieving at the same time. Lisa's mother visited Jessica's mother after she was found. They cried together. The way they were found felt so similar, and Lisa's mother knew exactly how she felt. Even if it didn't seem like it at the moment, that support meant the world to Jessica's family. Everyone was determined to figure out who was committing these vile acts, especially these parents. As the pieces came together, again, something about this felt very familiar. The way they all went missing and turned up how they did, left in similar areas. The families just couldn't stop thinking about it. It felt like something was being overlooked. Jessica, Nilda, and Heriberto all had one major thing in common. Medical examiners concluded that all three had been asphyxiated. Someone had stopped their ability to breathe, likely by overpowering them, but it was impossible to tell exactly how. Very reminiscent of when Lisa's body was examined. Possibilities included being smothered with a pillow, or someone cut off their air supply with their bare hands. It took a very long time, but the one common denominator in all of these scenarios was a man named Alejandro Henriquez, connected to every last one of the victims. He was a married man and a father, described as a clean-cut guy, always suited up and driving around in his BMW. He knew many in the neighborhood and met people all the time through his job as a livery cab driver. He was known to give kids in the Castle Hill neighborhood candy and often told them stories about how he was an undercover officer. To the older kids, he would brag about the women he dated and how good he had it. Some viewed him as harmless, while also noting that he could be quite arrogant and someone who constantly lied about his accomplishments. His strange connection to all of these victims couldn't be ignored. When Annette Rosario went missing and later turned up deceased, she was said to be calling a cab to go home. Henriquez just happened to be a cab driver, as mentioned, working for a service that operated right out of the Castle Hill neighborhood. Her skull was cracked from being attacked with a blunt instrument. When it came to 14-year-old Shamira Bello, she knew Henriquez because she was said to have dated his nephew. It was stated that he made several phone calls to Shamira's home phone before she went missing. Her life was also taken by repeated blows to the head, cracking her skull. 13-year-old Nilda Cartagena was also connected to Henriquez. He just so happened to be that uncle that Nilda was seen getting into a car with while with her friend Heriberto, which meant that Henriquez was one of the last people to be seen with them before they turned up deceased. Lisa knew Henriquez from around the area and was said to have gone on one date with him just 2 weeks before she disappeared. It was also stated that her mother felt very uncomfortable when she met him. Jessica also knew Henriquez. He was the father of one of her friends. She was one of those kids that he would give candy to. Kids in the neighborhood would often play in his car and get rides from him. It was something the children felt completely safe doing because he had already gained their trust. Nobody suspected a thing. It was reported.
Yeah, Bean Team, it's him. It gotta be him, man. Ain't no way you connected to all these freaking victims like that. Not even just on some, like, just not friend, because it don't make no sense for you to be friends with these little children anyway. But I'm just saying, not on just on that type of level. Like, it's family involvement with this ish.
Reported that up until 1989, Henriquez lived in the same Castle Hill building as Jessica, just one floor below. He was also on record as the last person to see her when she was still alive. Authorities had been trying to make these connections for some time, but never had enough for an arrest. They said there was no solid evidence of his involvement, only coincidences. Oddly enough, even with all those factors, it would be something completely unrelated that would get Henriquez arrested. The arrest involved Henriquez and another man, and their connection to a July 1987 robbery. They had apparently robbed the offices of a company called World Yacht Cruises, located at Pier 62 in Manhattan. He had been questioned about Jessica and the rest of the victims by authorities more than once, and by journalists on camera, denying his involvement every time. It was stated that he even went to Jessica's family's house after she was found. He was crying, telling them that he would never harm Jessica or any other child, offering his condolences. The truth was, he gained her trust by telling her about a horse he had in a stable in another part of the Bronx. Just another one of his lies. But the walls were beginning to close in on Henriquez. He was finally arrested on Tuesday, December 4th of 1990. Once brought into the 43rd precinct, he was immediately questioned about his connections to Lisa, Jessica, and the other victims. He told authorities he was home watching TV between the hours of 6:15 p.m. and 11 p.m., but a witness went on record and said that they saw Henriquez with Jessica, and it was after 6:30 p.m. He was lying. He had also mentioned one crucial detail that left authorities very surprised. He mentioned a floral pattern on Jessica's underwear. The only problem was, authorities hadn't yet cleaned them. The heavy decomposition and discoloring made it impossible to tell what color her underwear even was. When they went back after collecting all evidence and cleaned the underwear, it was indeed a floral pattern, and Henriquez knew this before the cops did. In addition to that, a witness mentioned seeing Alex working on his car on the side of the road on October 10th, 1990. This was the same day Jessica was last seen, and just a few feet away from where her body would eventually be found. The witness—
Yeah, like I said, y'all, it's you, bro. It is him, man. Like, it's so much evidence leading towards it being him. You got multiple eyewitnesses. Like, come on, bro. You literally got an eyewitness saying that I was working on your car just a little distance away from where the girl's body was found.
Witness stated that he stopped and asked Henriquez if he needed any help since he looked like he was having car troubles. His response was extremely rude, yelling back that he didn't need any of this man's help. When that witness was shown Henriquez in a lineup, he would immediately point them out. From the moment he was arrested, other cab drivers who knew Henriquez felt that he was guilty. Word began to make its way around that he was a sick person, and anyone who found themselves in his presence should tread carefully. As investigations continued, it would be learned that the car Henriquez drove when Jessica disappeared was later found in Texas after it had been repossessed and purchased by a couple. They tracked that couple down, examined the car, and inside were fibers from the clothes Jessica was wearing when she was last seen. A direct connection. Authorities were afraid that evidence might have been destroyed when the couple replaced a mat on the floor of the car, but luckily, a great deal of evidence remained. The car also had fibers that would connect Henriquez to victim Shamira Bello. He was also already suspected and under investigation for the slayings of Nilda, his own niece, and Heriberto. While many felt that Henriquez could never be the monster responsible for all this death, others grew impatient and fed up with police investigations because they felt that an arrest should have been made much sooner. And with all these connections to one person, it was hard to understand what took so long. If he had been brought in sooner, maybe these families wouldn't be grieving, but it was far too late. When questioned about Lisa, he would try and deny even knowing her at first, but authorities would show him a photo of her, which is when he finally admitted to having spent time with her in the past. The landlady to Henriquez's home recalled seeing him with Lisa in front of the house, talking in front of his car prior to events unfolding. He introduced her as his niece. He said he called her a cab, but that cab never came. This was just more evidence that he certainly knew Lisa. His phone number was also found in an address book that Lisa kept. He would say that he had an intimate relationship with her for some time, even though she wasn't his girlfriend. Her parents would later confirm that while the two knew each other, they were not a couple, and he had no such relationship with her, despite the papers calling her a former girlfriend of his. More than likely one of his stories that he liked to tell people. That pink pair of sweatpants that Lisa was wearing when her body was found? In a bizarre twist, it would be learned that the sweats belonged to Henriquez's wife. He said this was because Lisa had gone to the beach and she got sand and oil on her clothes, so she asked if he had anything that she could wear home. It was never even clear if she went to the beach earlier that day. Again, it was very hard to believe anything that he said.
Yeah, man, at this point, I really don't believe nothing that he say. Like, seriously, I don't, like, everything that he say, after all these lies that he done told, everything that he say going in one ear and out the freaking other Bean Team. But hey, Jose brought up a good point. He made a great point, man. The justice system in a way kind of failed us on this one, Bean Team. Like, seriously, we like this damn dude should have been caught long time ago. I could argue after the first murder, but we get to 1 + 2, then we had like 2 at the same time, then another. Like, dude, how do we get all the way to, I think, the little girl Jessica, who was his 6th victim? How we get to 6? You know what I'm saying, man? This man should have been locked up. They kind of failed us. That's all I'm saying, man. They kind of failed us. And some of y'all out there probably saying, no, take the kind of out. They did. And I will agree with that too.
Was conducted on Henriquez's home, where they would find articles of clothing belonging to Lisa. As the investigation unraveled, there would be more evidence to connect him to the other slayings, and it all continued to pile up. Once he was off the streets, there were no similar slayings in the area like before. His defense always argued that this was a witch hunt and Henriquez had no blood on his hands. But the families, judge, and jury felt very different, and a slew of old and new evidence against him said otherwise. On Monday, September 21st of 1992, Alex Henriquez was sentenced to 75 years to life in prison. He was convicted in the slayings of 14-year-old Shamira Bello, 10-year-old Jessica Guzman, and 21-year-old Lisa Ann Rodriguez. He remains the main suspect in the slayings of Annette Rosario, his niece Nilda Cartagena, and Heriberto Marrero, but couldn't be tried due to what was determined to be a lack of evidence. It's unknown if he had any other victims. The families erupted in applause and tears at his sentencing, knowing that the person who stole the lives of their loved ones would likely wither away in prison. Henriquez addressed the families of the victims and stated that they had been deceived, but these families were through with his deception. He was a wolf in sheep's clothing, a monster masquerading as a kind-hearted human. The blood that ran through his veins was cold. He had no remorse, and he genuinely thought that he was smarter than everyone else. He thought he could keep everyone fooled. But now, his dark secret was out, and everyone knew exactly what Henriquez was. The embodiment of evil. Lisa's father had the following to say after the sentencing. No puede tapar el cielo con la mano. You can lie, but you can't get away with it. The sky is so big, you can't cover it with your hand. Henriquez maintains his innocence till this day, but it won't do him any good. He'll be eligible for parole in the year 2070, which means his life will end behind those prison walls. When it comes to Lisa, her family never stopped loving and never stopped keeping her memory alive. Her bedroom was kept exactly as it was the day she went missing, sort of like a moment trapped in time. Her mother often goes into her room and sleeps in her bed, the space where she rested her head, got ready for school, combed her hair, and did her homework. It just brings her a sense of peace and calm, where she can almost hear her daughter's voice telling her that she loves her. Lisa's father, who had a very close relationship with her, always kept his daughter's memory close. He just wanted justice for his beloved daughter. Despite her horrific last moments, nothing could ever take away the memories that they created with her. Those pleasant memories are paired with moments of anguish and a profound sadness. They intend to always keep their daughter's memory alive. Even today, comments come in speaking about Lisa and how great of a person she was, how she's forever missed. She was just a young woman, and her precious time on this earth was stolen from her. Her life brutally ended by the same monster who ended the life of her childhood friend. She had no chance to live out her dreams or to have a family if she wanted to. She never even had a chance to say goodbye to those that she loved the most. Once Henriquez had his sights on Lisa, her fate was sealed. By the time his serial killing spree was over, there would be numerous families that were now united through their grief and vowing to never let the memories of these victims fade away. If alive today, Lisa would be 56 years old. Rest in peace, Lisa Ann Rodriguez, and my deepest condolences go out to her family and the families and loved ones of all affected. You'll never be forgotten.
will never be forgotten, Bean Team. Rest in peace to Lisa. Rest in peace to Jessica and everybody else. Just like the other 4 victims, I should say. Just like Jose said, man. Oh my God, y'all. I just gotta bring it back to my last little point real quick, man. Yes, man. I kind of feel like the justice system failed us with this. Like, we should have never got to Lisa. You know what I'm saying? Her life being taken by this freaking crazy mother, you know what? Like, I feel like the police should have investigated more, did whatever they could have done, man. I feel like more could have been done to prevent further murders from this guy. But this dude right here, even to this day, he's saying he ain't did it, and all that freaking evidence, bro. It's so much evidence pointing towards you. And I was saying it too, y'all. I was like, man, it gotta be some type of connection with this dude. He gotta know that these 2 girls are best friends. Now, we know what pretty much ended up happening to Lisa a little bit, and he actually got charged for a murder. Like, it's more evidence for that one. But as far as Annette, I just feel like Annette was out at, I can't remember the name of it's not a club, or maybe it was a club, bar, party house, whatever you want to call it, man. You know, she was out there, and he probably seen her, and she, I'm talking about Annette, she knew him through Lisa, and he was like, hey, what's up, Annette? How you doing? Oh, I'll take you home. And then we got to keep in mind that he was a taxi driver too, you know what I'm saying, man? So it's just, there is a connection right there, and it's a connection with all the freaking murders that he committed. Dude, that was you. Like, it's just so sickening, y'all, that number one, what he freaking did, y'all already know that off the tiz off. Just what he did was freaking sick. But it also be so sick how these freaking murderers, even though we got all this freaking evidence and stuff, they'll still sit right there and say they ain't do it. Like, come on, bro. Like, at this point, at least admit it. I don't give a damn if they don't admit it or not. It don't matter, Bean Team. One thing I can say on this one, from Jose Ortiz, is the fact that this dude got life in prison. Basically, what Jose said, he ain't got a chance of parole to 2070. Long story short, story long, your ass gonna die now, buddy. Long story short, story long, her ring ass, her reek ass, potato petite ass, whatever the freaking name is, you gonna die in prison, man. And when you die, you gonna go see your freaking maker. And I'm pretty sure that the maker ain't got nothing good planned for your motherfucking ass. And I digress, big team. I'll go let y'all go. I started to get mad right then, man, because I just think about all these freaking people he killed, and they just young children and stuff, and then the way he was doing them, did he want to sit up here and goddamn lie about the shit? Like, yeah, BT, I'ma go let y'all go, man. I appreciate y'all coming on back as always. And before you leave, as always, just please hit that like button, comment, subscribe, and do all that if you ain't did that yet. And remember this: love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.